Mr. Examiner, my name is Dexter Williams. I'm going to perform my air brake system check. The first thing I'm going to check is my seat belt. I'm going to make sure that it's attached to my truck and my belt is not cut or frayed, and my latches and unlatches. My first step that I'm going to perform would be my rate of pressure buildup. The purpose of this test is to ensure that my pressure builds up from 85 to 100 within 45 seconds. Okay, so I'll make sure my brakes are set, make sure my transmission is in neutral. I'm going to step on my clutch. I'm going to do a safe startup, let all my instruments roll to make sure all my needles and everything are working. Now I'm going to start my truck, and I'm going to fan my brakes to bring my primary to 85. Okay, I'm at 85. My test begins. Okay, I'm at 100. This was a good test because my pressure built up from 85 to 100 within the 45 seconds. Therefore, this is a good test. So when you're counting that, make sure you're counting. If you don't have a watch, 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 like that, okay? My next test is going to be my governor cutout. The purpose of this test is to ensure that my governor cuts out before 130 psi. So I can either sit here and wait for it to cut out, or I can speed the process up by stepping on the throttle that speeds the governor up to help it. So I'm going to step on my throttle, I'm going to bring it to 1,000 RPM just to help it along. And this is only so we're not sitting here wasting time, okay? You heard that noise? That's an indication that it cut out. My primary is at 130, my secondary is at 135. Therefore, this is not a good test because my governor cut out way after 130 psi. Okay, this line right here is 125. That's 100. This line right here is 75. That line right there is 25. Okay, so that means that this is in 25 intervals. Okay, that line is 25. Remember that. Okay, so now my next test is going to be my governor cut in. The purpose of this test is to ensure that my governor cuts in before 85 psi. So I'm going to remember the rate of pressure buildup is the only one that you just give the reading off the primary. Every one after that, you got to give the reading on the primary and the secondary. Okay, you guys remember when after the rate of pressure buildup, I just gave the reading on the primary, right? But on the cutout, I gave the reading on the primary and the secondary. Because every one after that, you got to give the reading on both of them. So I'm going to fan my brakes down to bring my primary to 100. Because it's a rail-rounded number. My primary is at 100, my secondary is at 110. Now there's a 10-second grace period. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000. My needles have started to move. They rose from 100 on my primary, and they rose from 110 on my secondary. Therefore, this is a good test because my needles have rose before 85 psi. You guys understand that? Okay. 85 is here, right? 100 is here, right? 100 is before 85, right? Because you got to look at it as a backwards percentage. 100 is before 85. That's what made it a good test, because if it rose from 100 on my primary and it rose from 110 on my secondary, all those are before 85. So that's what made it a good test. Okay? If you go below 85, it will be an automatic fail. Okay? So you guys got to keep that in mind. And the only reason why I tell you to pump the brakes until the primary gets to 100, because it's a number that you can't remember. And wherever your you got to remember the secondary is never going to be the same. Wherever that secondary is at, you got to give them that. You got to tell them where it's at, right? So when you go to the DMV, you can write those numbers down. You can bring a pen and paper with you, and you can write those numbers down, because they are going to write it down. And you have the same numbers you gave them. It's the same numbers you got to give them once the needles start to rise, because that's how you know that's the point where it cut in at. Do you understand what I'm saying? I pumped the primary down to 100. The secondary got to 110. So there was that 10-second grace period before the needle started to move. So once the needle started to move, I told him it rose from 100 on my primary and it rose from 110 on my secondary.
Are you supposed to roll like 3 psi or something like that?
No. That 100 is 100 psi, but I'm not saying psi. I'm just saying, yeah, this is psi. That's why it says that psi. You know what that stands for? Pounds square inch.
I thought it was like supposed to raise like 3 or 4.
No, that is the static leak. You're talking about the static leak, okay? But I just want to get you guys to understand the cut-in. You guys understand that cut-in? How I did it? Okay, so now the next step I'm going to perform will be my static leak test, right? The purpose of this test, you got 2 parts of the static leak. The first part is to ensure that my truck do not lose no more than 3 psi in a combination vehicle, right? And make sure I don't lose no more than 3 psi in 60 seconds. You can say it either way. Okay, the second part of that test is to make sure I don't lose no more than 4 psi in 60 minutes. That's when you apply the pressure. So the first test. My next test is going to be my static leak test. The purpose of this test is to ensure that I do not lose no more than 4 psi in 60 seconds. I mean 3 psi in 60 seconds. So now I'm at capacity. I'm going to put my truck in a forward low gear. I'm going to turn my key to the off position, and then I'm going to release the clutch. Now I'm going to push in my brake valve.
How come both came out?
I have no idea. It shouldn't do that.
We'll put it in first gear.
No, if you push this, the red, you always push the yellow in first. But if you push that red in before that yellow, it'll pop out. But for some reason, I pushed the yellow one in first, but that it still popped out again when I pushed the red one in. Okay, so now it stopped making that hissing noise, right? So now I look at my gauges, they stopped. My primary is at 105. My secondary is at 115. So now I'm making sure, now my 60 seconds begin. We're going to pretend like I held it for the whole 60 seconds. Make sure you guys bring a watch when you go to the DMV. My primary is still at 105. My secondary is still at 115. Therefore, this is a good test because I did not lose no more than 3 psi within the 60 seconds, right?
Yes.
So now my next test is going to be my applied pressure test. The purpose of this test is to ensure that I do not lose no more than 4 psi in 60 seconds. But now I'm going to apply the test. If you think about it, if you say the purpose of it, it tells you how to do the test, right? So now I'm going to step on the brake, wait for my needles to settle. My primary is at 90. My secondary is at 99. You can write these numbers down. Now I'm going to hold it for the whole 60 seconds, because you got to hold it for 60 seconds. There's no way you're going to remember those numbers. That's why you write it down. 5960. My primary is at 90. My secondary is at 99. The only reason why I remember it is because I've been doing this for a long time. Therefore, this is a good test because I did not lose no more than 4 psi in 60 seconds, right? Because my primary is still at 90 and my secondary is still at 99, right? So now I got to ask, may I release the brake? You cannot release that brake until you ask to do it.
Yes, sure.
May I release the brake? The examiner's going to tell you yes. Then you release the brake. So now the next test is going to be my low air warning light and buzzer test. The purpose of this test is to ensure that my low air warning light and buzzer comes on between 75 and 55 psi. So I said the purpose to myself. So if you think about it, in order for the light and the buzzer to come on, the key got to be in the on position, right? That's why all this stuff that you guys are doing is common sense. If you just relax and you think about it, and you think about what you say. Remember when you guys was in school and the teacher would tell you, think about what it is that you're reading and understand what it is that you're reading, and you'll be able to answer that question. That's the exact same thing here. If you understand what it is that you're saying, and then you're saying the purpose to yourself, the purpose tells you how to do the test. If you think about it. Because in order for that light buzzer to come on, you got to be like, hey, I got to have current running from my battery. Let me turn my key to the on position. Now I'm going to simply keep everything how it is. This is what's called a preventable roll. Because once you got these pushed in and this is in neutral, the truck is going to roll. But this is what prevents it from rolling because it's in a gear. But if I step on that clutch, now I'm disengaging this, so the truck is going to roll, right? That's why your foot is off the clutch. Okay. So now all I'm going to do, I leave everything how it is, and I just pump the brakes until my low air warning light and buzzer comes on. Okay? So now I'm going to pump the brakes until my low air warning light and buzzer come on. See how it came on? I pumped it one more time, right? My primary is at 55. My secondary is at 76. Therefore, this is not a good test. Because my low air warning and light and buzzer should have came on between 75 and 55, right? Think about it. It should have came on between 75 and 55, right? So if this is at 55, well, it just now moved to 60. And that's at, what I said 76, but now it's 77. Is that in between 75 and 55? Huh? No. That's why it's not a good test. See, this is the truck that goes to the DMV. That examiner stands right here behind you. Don't say nothing to you, just looking at those gauges. And you better give the correct readings. Because if you do not give the correct readings, they are going to fail you. The truck may fail, but you will pass.
As long as you give them the right readings.
As long as you give them the right readings. If now, we get people over there that say, oh yeah, that's 54 and 74. Because they're thinking they got to say it between that 75 and 55. But no, the examiner's going to fail them because you can obviously see that's not it. Okay?
Tell it like it is.
Tell it how it is. You can never say it's a roundabout or it's about. You got to say what it is. They're going to automatically give you about 2 off. But you got to say what it is. If you start saying it's a roundabout or it's about, they're going to fail you. Okay? So now my next test is going to be my pop-out test, right? The purpose of this test is to ensure that my brake valves pop out between what?
20 and 45 PSI.
Between 40 and 25, right? Right? Is it 40 and 25 or is it 45? Or is it 20 and 45? Read your books.
20.
I believe it's 45 and 20.
That's it.
Yeah.
Look at your books.
Yeah, so 45 and 20.
Yeah.
45 and 20, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to pump on my brakes, and these should pop out between 45 and 20, but the yellow one should always pop out first. Or both.
Together.
My primary is at 10, 15. My secondary is at 30. Therefore, it is a bad test on my primary, but it's a good test on my secondary, right? Okay. Guys, remember that. It is a bad test on my primary because it popped out at 15. They both popped out. But it's a good test on my secondary because it's at 30 because it's between the 45 and 20, right? Okay. So now my next test is going to be my emergency brake test. The purpose of this test is to check my brake system to make sure that my tractor brake is working properly and my trailer brake is working properly, right? So before I perform this test, I got to be at capacity. So I got to make sure that the first thing I do is make sure that these are popped out, and then I put my transmission in neutral, then I start my truck. And while I'm waiting for that to build to capacity, the examiner's going to tell me to do my in-cab. First thing am I going to do? I'm going to check my windows. My My windows appear to be working properly, going up and down. They are clear and they're not cracked, chipped, or broken. My mirrors are clear and they are properly adjusted to me and they are working, and they also are not cracked, chipped, or broken. Now I'm going to check my windshield. It's not cracked, chipped, or broken. I'm going to check my weather stripping. It's not frayed or dry rotted or cracked, which may allow fluid to leak into the truck. From there, I'm going to check my windshield wipers. They appear to be at the proper tension. My blades itself appear to be damage-free. They're not dry rotted or cracked or anything, right? And my windshield washer fluid appears to be working properly. From there, I'm going to go to my oil gauge. This is my oil pressure gauge. It's in a normal operating range between 40 and 60. This is my water temperature gauge. It's in a normal operating range between 150 to 200. And they should both start rising between 3 to 6 seconds of starting the truck. This is my voltmeter. It's in a normal operating range between 12.5 and 14. This is my fuel gauge. This is my primary air gauge. This is my secondary air gauge. This is my RPM tag. This is my mile per hour tag. This is my trailer brake. Notice how I'm doing this. I did that, and then I'm working from here across. And I'm going to go like this so I don't miss anything. This is my trailer brake. I should never use it. This is my trailer brake right here, knob, valve. This is my tractor valve. This is my, well, I'll start right here. This is my headlights. This is my high beams. That's my low beams. This is my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my four-ways. I have a 20-inch wheel, no more than 2 inches of play on a 20-inch wheel. This is my city horn. This is my country horn. We already talked about my wipers. We talked about my lights. This is my marker lights. This is my road light, my dome. This is my interaction differential. This is my fifth wheel slider. This is my suspension dump. This is where I will check my defroster and my heater. This is my clutch. I have no more than 2 inches of play on my clutch. This is my brake pedal. This is my throttle. And there's no debris under them or around my seat area. This is my shifter. It's not bent or broken. I have air lines. There's no abrasion, bubbles, or cuts. This is my selector for my high and low gear. It appears to be working properly. This is my boot. It appears to be attached to the truck. It's not torn or ripped, which may allow fumes to enter the truck. That's my fuse box. I should have an extra fuse for every circuit. This is my fire extinguisher over here. It's charged fully in the green, a 10 BC with a locking pin in place. And I have 3 rectangle reflectors in the back. And they're red in color and they're not cracked, chipped, or broken. And that's it. All the other stuff they teach you, overhead and radio, that's not even on the test. That's just stuff that we teach because we're an accreditation school. But because this is a fast-paced course, I teach you what it is that you guys need to know to pass at the DMV. Because it's a fast-paced course. So if I start putting all this extra stuff in your head that's not needed to pass the DMV, it's gonna
throw us off.
Okay? And that's it. Do you guys notice when I was talking about certain things, I said it appears to be? The reason why you have to stay, and I'll tell you that when you do the pre-trip, it appears to be because you are not mechanics. You do not know if it is secure or, because you're not a mechanic. And there are examiners over at the DMV. If you tell them that it is, then they're going to tell you, well, how do you know? So you don't want to open that door. That's why you always say it appears to be. And I'll explain that to you guys as we go on to the pre-trip. So now we're done with the in cab. So now my next test, they're going to tell you to verbalize it to you because they want to hear you on both of them so that you're going to mention that clutch. If you don't, then they're going to, it's like them giving you a second chance. Then they're going to tell you to do it. Okay. I'm at a fully charged system, so I'm going to step on my clutch. I'm going to put it in a forward low gear. I'm going to push in my tractor brakes because I'm going to test my trailer brakes. And I'm going to just give it a little tug, not let the clutch all the way out, just give it a tug to test it. And they're working properly. Now I'm going to push on my trailer brake. Now I'm going to check my tractor brake. And I'm going to give it a little tug. And they appear to be working properly. Okay? that makes this a good test. Now my last test is going to be my service brake test. The purpose of this test is to assure that my truck stops without hesitation, without dipping to the right, left, or forward, and make sure there's no noises coming from my steering wheel or no abnormal movement in my steering wheel. So I'm going to put they're going to tell you to verbalize it to them. You have to tell them just like this, or they're going to tell you to do it. It's like them giving you a second chance. I'm going to step on my clutch, put it in a forward lower gear. I'm going to push in both my brake knobs. I'm going to ease off my clutch and let my truck roll forward about 5 miles per hour. Then I'm going to step on my clutch and step on my brake, and my truck should stop without hesitation, without dipping to either side or forward, back. No noises coming from the steering wheel or abnormal movement, right? Okay? That's what made it a good test. Okay? You guys understand that? You must push in that clutch when you're getting ready to step on that brake, because if you don't push in that clutch, you step on that brake, what's going to happen? The truck's going to
jerk back and
stall.
Push in the clutch before you step on the brake.
So now let's get out the truck. This is the next step. The air brake in the pre-trip is one step. It's one test. It goes together. If you fail anything, you must repeat it again. Okay? So let's get out the truck now. So stop it now. Stop you guys' cameras now.